Napoleon said, time spent in reconnaissance is seldom wasted. The America Project led and funded and instigated all this investigation and paid for around the country for a couple years till we had a very clear, comprehensive picture of how the cheating was done. And that took tens of thousands, I suppose, of citizens out there using that information. I mean, not in our group, but all in these other election integrity groups. But we acted as the central clearinghouse of all that information, and we fomented it. Broke out of that cycle. Otherwise, we were in a Venezuela type saddle point or black hole from which we'd never have escaped. Yeah, well, at some point, it may turn out to be the case that the hand of God reached in and thwarted their normal, the technological, they have a fallback system that at the end of the day, yeah, they stuff this, they stuff the postal bags, they burn Republican ballots, they do all the normal stuff. But at the end of the day, they have a fallback switch that they could punch and just gets them over the line. And they punched it this time, and the hand of God reached in and stopped that spark from flying. And maybe we're going to know someday what that looked like. But I have a suspicion that that's what happened.
Well, I pointed out to one of the election integrity crews that the numbers, if you watch, over the course of the night, Trump held almost a steady 5 million popular vote lead throughout the night, which, if you're looking at the jurisdictions reporting, you should have seen two crosses in which the Northeast would have had a significant surge in favor of Harris based on the ending results, and then you would have seen a switch as Florida's reporting came in, and then the Rust Belt, and then you would have seen another switch when the West Coast came on and started reporting, and that's when you would have seen the runaway. But we didn't see that. What we saw was almost a programmatic, steady percentage result throughout the night, which favored Trump, and only narrowly through the night shifted towards Harris.
Patrick, from some of the folks that I talk with, they indicated that they were prepared. That you had a system of systems that was prepared and was taking active measures to not to do anything untoward, but to thwart untoward activities.
What they did not anticipate was the margin from which they could not recover. They did not anticipate Trump winning the popular vote, and that completely diffused the impetus for their uprising after post the election. There was several counties that went to hand count the ballots, and they moved to make hand counting the ballots. And election administrators in Michigan, Jonathan Brader, removed two of those clerks who were going to hand count the ballots, and
he doesn't have the authority.
Stephanie Lambert filed a lawsuit there. This is just one example of several around the country in which the move to hand counting the ballots has caused them a lot of heartache, in that we know from the 2022 election what we learned from the recounts and other efforts that we did, as well as investigations and all of the citizen observers and reports that we got, how they were manipulating things. That observation lended itself to this push for hand counting the ballots, which would have exposed the machine's algorithm it injected or used. So last minute, they tried to switch up the algorithm to account for certain jurisdictions. But then on top of that, all of the pressure that we applied created enough fissures and rifts within the system that when it came time to perform, they utterly failed, essentially.
They're harkening this back to even more impressive than Nixon's comeback, and they're harkening the red wave or the shift back to Reagan's 84 victory in 1984.
Well, there's a story I'm dying to tell, but I think it'd be better to wait until it's Donald Trump's story to tell. But
Sorry, 312.
do you remember, if you go back, so I gave a thing on Twitter maybe Thursday or Friday where I told this story about Kamala Harris. I've got bad news for you. Kamala Harris is 100% confident she's going to win. You may have seen that Twitter, like millions of people saw it, and you got to get it and vote and blah, blah, blah. Kamala, and that she was in a meeting with some people I know, and she was smirking and saying, don't believe the polls, don't believe anything. We got this in the bag. Well, if you look, Trump went out on Saturday and he was on a stage, I believe, with Elon. And he said almost word for word what I said. But he said, but we got a little surprise for them, don't we, Elon? A little surprise, something like that.
We can take the Senate pretty easily. And I think with our little secret, we're going to do really well with the House, right? Our little secret is having a big impact. He and I have a secret. We'll tell you what it is when the race is over.
Well, I think that I think if you go back and look at that speech, you're going to see, it's going to start clicking. I think they had a little surprise for
Patrick, I think you're right, because interesting, Mike Lindell this evening, he was commenting about being at Mar-a-Lago last night and so forth, and he said Trump was the most confidently calm I had ever seen him. So Lindell picked up on that Trump was not worried at all, even as the night started.
Funny that when the world hears the story, there's a story that is so funny. They basically their go fast switch. Basically the bad guys had a go fast switch. I'm going to speak metaphorically, but in Learjets, could theoretically go fast, but they were governed. There was a governor on their engine, so they couldn't go through the sound barrier. But back in the 70s and 80s, some Learjets would have a hidden switch called the go fast switch that a pilot could get up at altitude and punch, and they could actually break the sound barrier, which was a bad idea. A lot of them ripped apart in flight because of that. But it's as if the bad guys in these elections turn out to have had a go fast switch. There was always a way that at the end of the day, they could punch the go fast switch and zoom as fast as they needed to zoom. And that's why Kamala Harris was so confident, and Biden was confident, and that's why he could stay in his basement and campaign from his basement and things like that. Well, imagine that a little elf got in and secretly disabled that go fast switch. So they're all confident because they think that when they get up at altitude, when they need to, at the end of the day, they can just punch that button and go fast as much as they wanted to always catch up and beat the opponent. And they were smiling, I'm sure, up until yesterday at about 4 or 5 p.m. and they punched the go fast switch and nothing happened. That's what happened. Metaphorically, that's what happened. They got up to altitude yesterday, and when they saw results were coming in, and around 6 o'clock, they got ready to punch the go fast switch and make up the difference. And they punched it, and nothing happened. And I'm sure they, just like Venezuela. Venezuela had a way of stuffing. Venezuelans the regime lost their election 7 million to 2 million, but they had a system of stuffing 5.5 million ballots. That was the plan, and they had a way of doing it. And when they punched the switch to stuff the 5.5 million ballots, nothing happened. Yuck, yuck, yuck.
Patrick, like you indicated, and I think great efforts by good people, but also I think the hand of God cannot be discounted here.
Yeah. Well, I'm anxious to find out exactly where and when that hand of God. But I think that's what Donald Trump was referring to when he said to Elon this thing about on the stage. But Elon and me, we've got a little surprise, don't we, Elon? I think that
My instruction, we don't need the votes. I have so many votes.
We don't need votes. I tell my people, I don't need any votes. We got all the votes we need. I don't need votes. We don't need votes. We got more votes than anybody's ever had. You don't have to vote. Don't worry about voting. The voting, we got plenty of votes.
I think that the surprise was they figured out how to disable the go fast switch.
Hey Patrick, I know we've been going now for about 2 hours. Sadly, I think General Flynn had to catch a flight, so he couldn't get on. And anyway, is there any last comments you want to make, or things you want to leave with us to let you get onto your day there where you are?
Yeah, it's 5 a.m. This is going to go down for the next. We're going to have our 250th anniversary of our country in 2 years from now, with Donald Trump as president. And what happened here these last 4 years, and how this group of patriots outmaneuvered a communist revolution, and we had everything stacked against you. And it's just going to be spoken of for the next 250 years. And I will never forget March 5th, 2021, General Flynn. I was packing my bags to go to Switzerland. I had no idea what I was going to do. I did. I thought I was going to go and live overseas. And as everything collapsed, there would be a civil war. And I figured I would sit and fund the correct elements in the civil war. But I thought things were hopeless. And General Flynn called me and said, Patrick, they have conquered everything. They've stolen the White House. They've stolen Congress. The judiciary is useless. They've got total information dominance because they control the mainstream media. They've got everything, but the one thing they haven't conquered is the American people. And I'd like you to move to Florida and work with me, and we're going to get this movement going. We're going to unify the tribes, and that's what we have. And it was all General Flynn as the architect. It's all General Flynn as the architect. I had some money, thanks to God. I had some more money than I deserved. General Flynn was the architect, but it took a lot of shoe leather. And I think the shoe leather, that's basically the origin of the American project, but it took the shoe leather came from a lot of people on this call, and the hundreds and thousands of people who lined up behind us. So it's really will be a story that goes down in history.
Patrick, and you shared with us several calls you've joined on our coalition calls. You had said, if we really dedicate ourselves, we'll be the first nation in history to jujitsu its way out of a color revolution.
Yep. Yes, we will. I'm fascinated. Normally, the incoming president does not go up the day after the election to meet the outgoing president. I'm fascinated to see how that plays. I hope he doesn't get himself killed in the process, but I'm fascinated to see to learn someday what's going on at the White House between Biden and Trump. Because one thing I think could be under discussion is Trump could be telling them, hey, we can now document your go fast switch from 2020. We see how you got your office through a go fast switch. Okay, I'm gonna hit. It's 5 a.m. here.
It's way ahead, but you don't want to get too hopeful. How far ahead is he? He's ahead by 100 points. That seems like a lot.
Yeah, and you're like, what is it? And some channels are like, and then every channel is kind of different.
Yeah, they had different numbers. I was getting a different number off my Apple News update than I was getting off of CNN, and then I was texting people like Tulsi and J.D. Vance. I was getting a different Apparently, Elon created an app, and he knew who won 4 hours before the results. So as the results were coming in, 4 hours before they called it, Dana White told me Elon was like, I'm leaving. It's over. Donald won. He just fucking somehow or another.
I'm going to go back into my pod and evaporate.
I don't know what he's getting, where he's pulling his data from, but he had the most accurate data in terms of the rural states hadn't put their results in yet, but yet Trump was ahead in these states. Kamala's never going to win those states, so tabulated that and put it all together. I don't know how he did it. But
yeah,
Dana. I haven't even talked to Elon about this. I don't know the Dana translation, but Dana said he had an app, and he was showing them. He's like, it's over.
They don't have
He fucking left.
information. They don't have anything right now. We're trying to. I just spoke to Elon. I'm getting him. We want to get Starlink hooked up because they have no communication whatsoever. And Elon will always come through. We know that.
Says access to connectivity was improved this year thanks to Starlink satellite internet. She adds early technical difficulties with a tabulator machine were quickly fixed and did not impact voting.
Dude, if we lose them.
It does seem that way. You can't just be like,
Yeah, I'm like, how long do you think my prison sentence is going to be? Do you think? Will I see my children? I don't know.
Because it's not like you can say, well, yeah, I maxed out to him, but, you
I have no plausible deniability.
From the data of every single swing state in the 2024 election, there is one very consistent question. I'd like to start in North Carolina. North Carolina overwhelmingly elected Democratic Governor Josh Stein with over 3 million votes. They elected a woman Democrat, Rachel Hunt, as the Lieutenant Governor. Elected a Democrat as their Attorney General. Democratic Secretary of State. A Democratic woman lost in the Supreme Court race by 7,000 votes. And you get to the presidential race, and Donald Trump won by 189,406 votes. Now, what's interesting here? 356,884 people cast a vote for president and did not cast a vote for governor. Now, in 2020, North Carolina had a House race. The discrepancy there between the House and the presidential votes was 199,000. I'd love to hear from any of the hundreds of thousands of people in North Carolina that voted for Donald Trump and left the rest of their ballot completely blank. Next, let's look at Michigan, who elected to the Senate a Democratic woman in Alyssa Slotkin. 5,393,906 people voted in the Senate race. 5,641,411 voted for president. That is a difference of 247,505. I would love to hear from any of the 150,000 people that voted for Donald Trump and did not vote for Mike Rogers. You might ask, didn't Michigan have a Senate race in 2020? What was the discrepancy then? It was 59,282 people that voted for the president and did not vote for the senator. So a difference of almost 200,000 votes in that category, and another Democratic woman winning while Kamala Harris loses. And it's funny you mentioned that, because let's take a look next door where a Democratic woman who is a lesbian, Tammy Baldwin, was able to win her Senate race as well. Funny enough, by just the right margin, is about 60,000 votes in Wisconsin for Donald Trump that didn't feel like voting in the Senate race. And I would love to hear from a Wisconsin Republican that voted for Donald Trump but didn't want to give their vote to Eric. In 2020, Wisconsin had a Senate race. The discrepancy was 14,990 votes between people that voted for the president and people that voted for the Senate. This year, it was 56,125. Now let's look at Nevada, a state that re-elected a Democratic woman to the Senate in Jackie Rosen. Once again, Donald Trump won by 46,000 votes. About 70,000 of those, it seems like they didn't fill out the rest of their ballot or vote for the senator. Isn't that interesting? Would love to hear from a Nevada Republican that didn't want to vote for Sam Brown but voted for Donald Trump. There are a lot of you. Finally, turning to Pennsylvania, 176,000 ballots cast a vote for president without voting for the Senate race, which is hotly contested. That Senate race was deeply cared about by both parties, incredibly well advertised on both sides. So much money went into those campaigns. Very interesting to see 175,000 ballots only voting for the president. Arizona is completely inept, so I can't analyze their data yet. Georgia did not have any kind of large election underneath the president that I could look at. Very interesting stuff. If you're one of the hundreds of thousands of ballots that decided this election that seemingly only had one line filled out, let me know in the comments your mindset and why you don't seem to care about anything else. Very interesting.
All of his wives, cheated on all of his taxes, cheated and defrauded the American people through all of his businesses, can't even form and run a nonprofit in the state of New York because he defrauded the public. A guy who constantly defrauds and cheats in the most consequential event of his entire public life. You're telling me that everybody is 100% confident that he didn't cheat. All of the people from his first administration who helped him get into office got charged and prosecuted and jailed for being conspirators with Russia. We already litigated this. He is a fraud and a cheat. Why are we accepting that the outcome of this election is completely okay? Everything we know about how fascist authoritarians rise to power tells us that something is wrong. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears.